And welcome to the Men's Journal Everyday Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sarraille. All right, I've been waiting for this one. I'm excited about, and I said I would not fanboy out, but I've got Kelly Slater, the GOAT himself. Kelly, I'm going to jump right in, and thank you for joining us today. Your career has now spanned 3 decades, 11 world championships. Man, what do you consider to be the keys to your longevity and success across these 3 decades?
Oh, well, thanks for the intro. Number one thing, it's probably just passion, loving what you do at the end of the day. I mean, as a kid, I spent my days on the beach, surfing, fishing. My dad owned a fishing bait and tackle shop near the beach, about a block from the beach. My mom liked to hang out and suntan, and I was building sandcastles and running around in the water and on the dunes, and then eventually got in the water and started surfing. Over a number of years, there was I don't remember one period where I just was like, okay, I started surfing today. It was, boogie boards and body surfing and longboards and swimming and stuff. And then eventually moved into where I was just surfing on a shortboard. And got my first hardboard at 8 years old, surfed my first contest that same year. Actually, I surfed my first contest on a soft boogie board with 2 fins on it. And I wore a leash on my front wrist that was hanging off the nose. But soon after that, I got my first actual hardboard, and that was 1980. And then probably within about a year or two after that, I started surfing not only local events, but then regional and East Coast events. And then by the time I was 12, I was surfing national events and international from about 13, 14 years old. But yeah, look, to answer your question, no, at the end of the day, I fell in love with surfing, and that was my outlet, was through competition. And, that gave me all this other stuff. I got to travel and make money and have a career and make a living from it. But, the number one thing I'm going to do every day when I wake up is figure out where I'm going to surf that day, or if I'm surfing, and then other things fall in line behind that.
That's awesome. The fact that you still have the initial love for the sport, because I'm sure with a lot of professional athletes, just the burden of everything that comes with it, the limelight, the over attention, which is not even a word, but that they just lose the love of the sport. Kelly, I do want to ask this, because it seems like in society today, we like to discount, things that people earn. Like a lot of people may just look at you and say, well, hey, his abilities were natural. He didn't have to work as hard. Do you think you put in more work than the other surfers to get where you're at when they were out partying? Were you the one sitting 4 sets in one day, 4 sessions, 5 sessions? Did you outwork your competition?
I surfed all day. I remember I had a surf coach when I was a kid named Dick Cattree, and Dick was he was a pro surfer himself in the 70s, and then he coached us, and he owned a surf shop that we were sponsored by from the early 80s. And he always used to hammer it home to us, you have to surf in all conditions all the time. And that wasn't a problem for me, because that's all I wanted to do. It was more fun. I tell a story where my dad coached our football team, and I would skip practice to go surfing, and he would go coach practice. I loved football. I loved baseball. I did love other sports, but nothing compared to surfing to me. And I really gave up everything else for that. And I also, from a young age, it was really hammered home to me by my mother to stay away from drugs and alcohol. And so I didn't go through that sort of party phase in high school or college years or any of that. I was straight into surfing and very dedicated to my craft. And I really wasn't interested in knowing what a hangover felt like. It just wasn't my thing. So that added to all the time I was able to, get up in the morning and surf all day and surf till I was tired, eat a meal and go to sleep. And that was really number one to me, ahead of everything by a long shot.
Yeah, I'm sure it had to be hard with all the extracurricular or access to extracurricular activities on tour. Did you see some guys just they jumped into the party lifestyle, and then it was like a slow decline from there?
Yeah, it was actually kind of a rough thing to learn about people you look up to. I got on tour, and I've always been a little bit of a, I mean, I got a lot of friends, but I've been a little bit of a loner when it comes to travel and stuff. And I do spend a lot of time by myself, always kind of have. Even if I'm traveling with friends, I find a lot of alone time. But I remember going to France when I was like 18, 19 years old. And we go from California. Our tour would go from California to France, and it's a 9-hour time difference. So you're super jet lagged, and it's hard to go to bed and get on time when you fly east. And I remember going to clubs, like bars and clubs, till the sun came up, and I would drink a Coca-Cola and some water, and I'd see these guys just raging until the sun came up, and then go straight into the surf, still drunk, And I just couldn't believe it. And these were guys that had such a huge impact on my life growing up, because I love the way they surf, and they were hugely influential to me. And it actually fueled my fire, because I lost respect for them, and I just wanted to beat them competitively. And I also felt like it gave me a leg up. I just thought, look, I'm going to be healthier, feel better, be more present and focused. And I think that was the case for a lot of years. Now, if you move to today, you got almost every single guy on tour and girl is training, working out, eating good, have coaches, they got their whoops and their Oura rings and their sleep cycles down, and nutritionists and all this kind of stuff. So it's a different game now, but I think I was ahead of that curve for many years.
Oh man, I can only imagine, because it's like now we're the old guys to be like, hey, I had to walk 10 miles through the snow to get to school. Now you guys have all the advantages of all this stuff. I hope they are.
Use that one because I'm from Florida.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you can come up with a variant, but I hope they are better, faster, stronger than our generation was, given access to everything else. But it brings up a good question, man, because I remember, I believe it was 98, because that was the year I joined the Marine Corps. You stepped off tour, man. For remind me, 2-3 years?
3 years. 3 years off tour.
Was it? Can you just sort of give me the reasoning behind that? Was it just all everything that came with the tour, the pressure, both physical, mental, why you felt you had to take a break, and ultimately, is that a period of your life that you absolutely valued the making the hard but right call to take some time off?
Yeah. Well, when you say my career spanned 3 decades, it's probably closer to 5 now.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually wish I had started. I wish my first contest was a year earlier, because the surf contest I first entered was an annual event that actually the brothers that made my first surfboard I ever owned, they had this event, and it was to support the National Kidney Foundation. So the NKF was the event that we had every year at our local beach. And my brother surfed it the year before, but he was older. And my mom said, no, you're going to wait another year. But that would have put me as my first contest in the 70s. So it was 1980 was my first event. It would have been a nice milestone to get another decade in there. So I started competing at 8 years old, not really full on, but by the time I was 10, I was competing really full on, like every event that I could enter. And so when I took those 3 years off tour, I was 26 when I had just won my 6th world title, my 5th world title in a row. And I was just completely burnt out. I had no desire to surf a contest at that time. And I was actually clear of that about a year and a half before I took the time off tour. I went to my boss. So I had this goal. I wanted to try to beat Mark Richards' record of 4 world titles in a row. Mm-hmm. And halfway through the year to try to win my 4th, I wasn't having a great year. And I was struggling to really want to be there. And I told my boss, I said, if I don't win this year, I'm going to take some time off, a couple of years. And if I do win, I'm going to try to go for one more year and then take time off. So I was very definitive in what I wanted to do, very decisive in what I wanted to do. And so, I don't know what you know about that 5th in a row, which was my 6th in 1998, but I basically won it by the slimmest of margins. A whole bunch of things had to happen exactly in order for me to win that in that last event, and it did. And I just, that's just some kind of fate working in my favor. And I'll pull my chips off the table for a little bit while I have a chance to.
So, I know you've been an advocate of plant-based medicine, Rhythmia. You're on the board of directors there. Plant-based medicine has done wonders within my tribe of special operations guys that have gotten out. I myself have gone through it a couple times. Do you think if that was available to you in '98, maybe that would have sped up that cycle?
No, I would have I would have had no interest in even hearing about that at that time. But I know that it has worked for a lot of special interests, a lot of military people. A lot of people have been through personal traumatic stuff. But no, to answer your question, no, I didn't know anything about it, and I would have had no interest at the time. I don't think at all.
But are you a big advocate of plant-based medicine now for learning growth, expansion of the mind?
Yeah, I really haven't talked about that much publicly.
Yeah.
I think it's a personal decision, and I think that I know the wonders it can do for people. But look, a medicine of all types, used properly with the right approach, is beneficial. And we see. I've always been a very anti-drug, anti-drinking, vocally anti-drugs and drinking person, and you see now that there's more people dying of prescription drugs than street drugs, and but there's always some sort of swirling epidemic within pharmaceuticals or street drugs or whatever. But they're all created for a certain purpose, to try to help people, hopefully. But a lot of things are just abused. Most people figure out some way to abuse anything in life, and unfortunately, there's epidemics of that all over the place. But I do think there's a big opening for what you're talking about. Aaron Rodgers has talked about it a lot.
Yes.
There's a lot of people in more popular culture lately open those doors, and I just think there's not enough known about that stuff for the average person to understand what it is.
Yeah, the research, I think, over the next few years will open up those avenues for a lot of people. And you brought up addiction. We've seen a lot of guys even stop drinking altogether from it. So it is a very personal choice. It can be a very beautiful choice if the setting is right and done with the right people, as you referenced. In that vein, I know you've been an advocate of suicide prevention. You've tried to use your influence in your position. Could you talk a little about that? I know you've suffered some tragedy, the loss of friends throughout your career to suicide. Why that is a passion of yours?
Well, specifically for that reason, before it ever affected me, I remember being in junior high, and there was a kid that I knew that actually lived on the school grounds. His dad was a police officer of some sort, and I wasn't very. I sort of knew him by name, but he knew my older brother a bit. But he committed suicide in high school, and it was such a foreign thing to me. Obviously, hopefully nobody ever has to deal with that. But over the years, I've lost a lot of friends to suicide, like more than I can count, and most of them being men, boys, guys, dealing with stuff they don't know how to deal with, and I think it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of different components to it. There can be drugs, there can be mental and emotional problems going on with somebody. There can also just be you don't have or feel like you have the right person to talk to in your life. There's a whole lot of different ways to sort of break it apart and look at it. But yeah, just in the last couple of years, I've unfortunately lost a lot of friends. I had a couple really tragic ones happen recently that were I felt like they were preventable, and we tried, but when somebody sees the signs, you got to just like gather around that person and try to help them, and do your best to open up some other doorways for them or some different points of view.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things is people just need to ask for help. The second they ask for help, that opens up that door. Okay, hey, let's
Yeah.
figure this out.
Or, and for you, that's not, if you're not that person in it, to see those signs from somebody and do your best to be non-judgmental and allow them to talk.
Well, Kelly, one, I've got to say, we recently had Stephen Cutler on the show. If you don't know Stephen Cutler, 14-time New York Times bestseller, he recently wrote a book called Nar Country, Growing Old While Staying Rad. And he talked about you and the superpowers of aging, and the Lost Tapes was absolutely motivating for all of us over 40 that have told,
Oh, that's nice. Thanks.
an old dog can't learn new tricks, but bro, you continue to push through, and it seems now like your passion is still surfing, but you're switching from having been, sponsored by all these companies, and what you've done with Outer Known and Firewire boards. Is the commercial area becoming more of a passion for you and starting companies in the sustainability area?
Short answer is yes. Longer answer is that I've been sponsored since I was about a 10 or 12-year-old kid. And for, I would say, half that time, I didn't know a whole lot about supply chains, materials, environmental impacts, workers' safety, all sorts of things that I think when social media hit, it started to become part of my algorithm and things that interested me. And that's when I started to become a lot more passionate about the ideas around it. And I figured if that was, look, pro surfers make the bulk of their money generally from sponsorships, not from prize winnings. And I just felt like there was a duty there for me, especially as I aged and became more aware of things, to be a part of some sort of solution within brands that I'm involved with, and send that message, and also I think people should be inspired to know they can go out and do anything on their own if they want to.
The sustainability is interesting, and definitely the purpose behind your companies is there. Is it difficult to manage that with profitability? Because I know sustainability is such a niche market, and it
Yeah.
does cut into your profit margins. Is that something you guys got to contend with almost nonstop?
Um, it's funny. My old boss from Quicksilver, when I left Quicksilver after 20 some odd years, 23 years, I think it was, we were talking about this, and we remained good friends, and but he said, he's a French guy, and he says, there's no chance you can do this and make a profit, and he said it's too difficult. So I don't know if I took that as like a challenge or what, but after a while he started to get it. Unfortunately, he has since passed away in a tragic boating accident, but he was a huge influence and a very big supporter of what we're doing, what I was doing personally with Outer Known, and he was looking to potentially have us be involved together again, cross company collaboration at some point. But yeah, he definitely was in his world and saw the way that surfing world and the industry worked, and saw the difficulty ahead for us. So that's a little bit of a long-winded answer to your question, but it is more difficult, because when I first came out, when we first launched it, and I was so proud to launch this brand, the amount of hate I got, man, it made everyone in the office just like go into kind of a depression for a little while. We couldn't talk about it because our prices were much more expensive than what the surf brands are, but they weren't anywhere near what expensive fashion is. So it was kind of in this middle zone, and you're trying to figure out who your customer is, and the message you're sending to them, and are we surf or are we like a clothing brand, and are we Are we going to be something fashionable and comfortable, or are we going to be just sending out this message of sustainability? And that's primarily the thing ahead of how good the clothes feel and how well they work. So there was a little bit of a shock there for us at first, and it was definitely hard. But people don't understand that when you take care of your workers, when you have a responsible supply chain, when you have social compliance, where people have good working conditions, all those things immediately double your costs or more. If you use recycled product, which seems virtuous, which seems like the right thing to do, it can often be 2, 3, 4 times the price just for raw materials, because so many people are not using that, so few people are using that it becomes just a volume, just a metric. And so the more people start to use it and jump on that kind of bandwagon of sustainability and recycling and that sort of thing, which I think is inevitable, and you're already seeing a huge move to that.
Yes.
That's what brings the prices down. So,
well, dude, I've got to say, man, kudos to you and your entire team. It's not very often that we see companies with a soul, with such a strong purpose. And for me, that's easy to get behind, whether it's a higher cost or not. And I know that's easy for me to say because certain things can be cost prohibitive to other people. But congrats on sticking by your beliefs, despite, as you said, all the hate that came out. If you don't mind me asking, there is a new venture coming out here shortly, Kelly, and there's not much that you can see online other than submit your email. Do you mind giving the listeners just a little bit of information on this new venture?
I was approached by a person that I knew that had a company, and they had this idea that we could design sandals and eventually get into shoes. So we figured starting with sandals is most logical because I spend my life mostly in sandals on the beach and traveling. And so we designed a sandal, which we are calling the KLLY sandal. And it's actually called the New Moon, the one we're launching in black. It's inspired by the moon and by turtles, which is an interesting thing because during the year you have 13 moon cycles, and there on the back of a turtle you have 13 large scales, and around the outside you have 28 smaller scales, and the 28 days in a moon cycle. It's a very strange coincidence, or maybe not a coincidence, that has happened in nature. And so the two of those things we kind of put together, the elements of the moon and the turtle, and the bottom of the sandal is basically a print of a turtle shell, and it creates traction, and the top is the surface of the moon. So we're kind of playing off those two things.
There's no other better way to say it than that. That's freaking cool, man. That is a great story, and no coincidence there between the lunar cycles and the shell of a turtle. And when is this launching?
A cosmic mystery.
Yes, design of God or whoever you worship. And people can go to what's the domain? Is it KLLY.com?
Yes. KLLY.com is the domain.
I love the name. I love the name. Well, Kelly, dude, followed your career, and we're roughly close in age, my entire life, man. It's been.
Where are you from, by the way?
So I was born in San Jose, California.
Okay, gotcha.
So we used to go to Santa Cruz. I remember going through the Richard Schmidt School of Surfing when I was younger.
Yeah. Hey, Richard Schmidt's a legend, man.
Yeah. And so was always in surf culture. And then I was stationed in San Diego with the Marines and SEALs for a long time. And so we'd always do, for physical training, we call it surf PT. So occasionally we had some fun when we weren't running around in the sand. But
I've met a bunch of the SEAL guys who've come out to Hawaii and trained on the North Shore in the winter over the years.
Getting towed in and out of
and doing stuff at night. You guys are a little bit nuts, but
I'd say we beg to differ.
I do appreciate that that the SEAL teams have have reached out to surfers and specifically big wave and lifeguard experts to kind of fill in that side of the knowledge.
And actually, so I went out to Hawaii and did that training. I mean, it makes sense, dude. Our mantra is find the people that have the most knowledge, that are the very best in the world, and learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the military is not the best at anything. We're a jack of all trades. But Kelly,
Mm.
we end this in a certain way, man, with two questions. First, and it doesn't have to be three. We always say three. For the listeners, for anyone trying to pursue the passion the way you did, what do you consider, and I think you already mentioned one, passion. What do you consider to be maybe your 2 to 3 keys to success beyond passion?
Trusting your gut. As a kid, I had a really strong belief that I knew something other people didn't know. I had a really strong connection with, I didn't know if that meant better, but I really felt like I saw surfing and riding waves differently than other people did. And I felt a real essence between myself and the ocean and my skill. And I truly believe that was going to lead to something wonderful in my life and that I was chosen for. And that's not religious. It's maybe a little spiritual. I just really felt very strong belief in what I was learning. And then third thing, I think the resounding message in my life is networking, like all the people I know around the world. In fact, I had a close friend bring it up to me yesterday and talk about how they didn't know how I kept such close connection with so many people in the world, but thank God for iMessage, and being able to text people, because otherwise I probably couldn't do it. But I have really strong network of people around the world, families, friends, past sponsors, stuff like that I just feel tuned in with. In the surf world, I think any world that somebody's in, it's a little bit of a small world when you get into sport. There's people you can reach out to anywhere in the world for surfing, and I've met people from pretty much every country that surfs on this planet. You'd be blown away, people from Pakistan and Russia and anywhere in South America and up in northern Canada. It's wild to see all the places in the world people do surf, in the North Sea off of Norway, and in the Mediterranean or in the Persian Gulf area. So there's just such a diverse DNA in surfing all across the planet. And it's really a fun thing for me. It's really fun to meet all the different cultures. I go all these different places. Last year I went to the Maldives for the first time, and I didn't know a whole lot about it, funny enough, but there's like 1,200 islands or something. And at all times of year, depending on where the swell and wind is coming from, there's really good quality surf all over. But it's just one of the most beautiful places in the world I've ever been. And there's still a whole bunch of places out there for me to go.
That's awesome that you find tribe around surfing, and it's always amazing what creates those bonds of homecoming and belonging.
Yeah, make those friends around in your community. Make those friends around the world, and especially as you get older, you start to really enjoy. As I'm looking at potentially getting off the tour here in the not too distant future, I had a strong feeling of that this year, going around, really putting my mind in that. Hey, maybe I won't be coming to these places again to compete, and it's makes me a bit sad. But I have friends in all those places, so I'll probably still go back.
Kelly, last question. We talk a lot about legacy and impact on this podcast, and sometimes the impact we leave is not necessarily the impact we wanted to be known for. I mean, you've transformed, and it's amazing you say trust your gut, because I remember in the Lost tapes, you spoke to a school in Australia where the kids go to high school for basically surfing, and they tie all the subjects. And you said, hey, back when I started surfing, it was sort of a sport for would you say bums? I think you used the word, and you've turned it into this professionalized sport even more so. And I mean, you've impacted generations. And I know you're still competing for the Olympics in Paris in 2024. But at the end of the day, when all is said and done, what's the impact? And that may be the impact you want to be known for. What's the impact or legacy you want to leave behind or be the best known for?
That's a funny one. As a kid, I wanted to be the best surfer in the world. That was my that was my goal. And as you get older, you realize that doesn't exist. You can be the best competitive surfer for that year. Maybe you're the best at a certain skill, but I don't know that there's such a thing as the best surfer, or there ever will be, or of anything. It's like comparing different generations and stuff. I just wanted to be as good as I possibly could, and I wanted to be a world champion. And I'm really proud of that stuff. I'm really happy all that happened. It led to a lot of amazing opportunities in my life. But I think at the end of the day, I want to be remembered as a good person and have a lot of friends and treat people the right way.
God bless that. Kelly, I can't thank you enough. We'll drop all the links to your new venture, KLLY.com. Check out the sandals. And personally, from somebody that was born in the 70s, thank you for continuing to represent our generation and competing with those young kids, man, because you inspire all of us, no matter, despite your age, to continue getting out there and just do hard things. So thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. Good to talk to you.
All right, guys. And everyone, thanks for joining the Men's Journal Everyday Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sarraille. Until next time. All right, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.